The beginning of our story is the uplands. That's where all the rain falls, and that's where the water that gets into our streams, becks, rivers, and flows down to our towns and cities starts from. One of the problems we have is that this water that's falling now will be in the becks and in the rivers within probably about 4 hours of landing on the top. Many years of grazing here has left the soil quite compacted, and so the water tends to run off the surface rather than getting down into the deeper soils. There's no deep vegetation or tree cover here to help that water percolate deeper into the soil and down into the groundwater. So we think that altering this landscape by allowing different vegetation types and possibly tree cover will help that percolation of water, will slow down that process of water arriving on the tops and being in the rivers, and that will hold water in the uplands, and it'll help us to manage soil loss and erosion.
See, we've got a lot of caddis, these are granum, a few sandfly. This is controlled by the trees, believe it or not. If we don't have trees on the riverbank, these things suffer. Very important on a riverbank to have deciduous trees, not pine trees. And these leaves that fall into the water during the autumn, late autumn, they rot down. Different species rot down at different rates. So we've got a constant, all through the winter time, of food with invertebrate lives.
When you have large amounts of riverbank and silt entering the river, it has an adverse effect on the fish in the river, because just downstream from here we have salmon and sea trout spawning on the gravels. This silt can enter the gravels and clog the gravels up where the fish have laid their eggs, and there's no oxygen percolating through the gravel, and eventually the eggs will die in the gravel.
They all depend on these invertebrates, so these are the key to the whole health of the river. So if we take these away, we don't have any more fish stocks, which means we don't have any more otters, we don't get any more bird life, and so the whole thing collapses. Going as far as the uplands and the small streams where these fish breed, these overhanging trees, if there are not too many of them, they create dappled shade, which regulates the water temperature.
Warm water, and water is warming in these fells, prevents salmon spawning and sea trout spawning. So keeping these waters cool is really vital for the quality of the fishing and the fish downstream. Important socially, important economically in these regions.
You can see a river here with where there's stock access from both sides. You can see it's quite wide, and in times of low flow it's actually very shallow and makes it very warm. If you look over the other side of the bridge, you can see where it's been fenced. If you're looking up the river here, you can see it's fenced both sides. You can see reeds and everything starting to establish, and on the right hand side there you can see as you know, catching the sediment, and it's actually moving out into the river and making it narrower, which is much better for the actual fish.
This really good strip of vegetation that we've got here, when there is a flood event, the water rises, and the grass on here and the trees that we'll plant here in the future will help slow the velocity of the water down and stop erosion. We've got some large spruce logs that are placed at the base of the erosion, and attached to the logs we've got some old Christmas trees. These were left over from Christmas. The reason we attach the Christmas tree to the log is to take the energy out of the water on future flood events, and this stops the riverbank eroding. This project was just completed less than a year ago, and the riverbank's now stable behind us. We also consolidate what we've got here with some trees that have been provided by the Woodland Trust. It isn't just about planting trees on the riverbank, it's also about managing the trees that you already have here. We've managed quite a lot of the old trees so that we've cut them off right at the bottom and allowed new vegetation to grow up. And this vegetation, this helps slow the velocity of the river down in future flood events. It's also about getting the right trees planted in the right area on the riverbanks. If you look on this side of the river, we've got some erosion happening there at the moment. The reason for this is because right on the edge of the riverbank, we've got some large old Scotch pines. Scotch pines have very small root balls, and the roots aren't very good at holding the riverbanks together. There's no losers in this project. The anglers win because we're creating new habitat. The erosions aren't causing problems and have an effect on spawning fish in the river and lakes. The local community win because they're enhancing their local environment. These projects are all partnership projects. We have some real big key partners like the Forestry Commission, the Woodland Trust, Lake District National Park, Natural England. We involve the local school children to help us plant trees, and they're just real good projects for bringing all the community together.
So this is the mouth of the river. This is where the salmon, either as juveniles, are leaving to go off to sea, or where they're coming back to spawn. And this really is the entry point of the river, and we do have to make sure the rest of the river system is fit for those fish to return, to spawn. It's cool enough in the uplands for that spawning to be successful, and there's not so much pollution in the rivers that it's preventing successful spawning and healthy fish.